Welcome, folks, to a 2023 official season kickoff episode of the Cover One Film Room, part, of course, of the Cover One Sports Network. I am one of your two hosts on this evening, Anthony Prohaska, joined by Eric Turner. Eric, the Buffalo Bills did stuff today. I feel like they knew
Yes.
we were going live tonight, and they were like, you know what? We want them to have some stuff to talk about. So we got someone returning to the Buffalo Bills. We got a new addition to the weaponry group. We got another move that just happened like 5 or 6 minutes ago before we went live. So there's a lot to dig into from an overall team and roster standpoint, but also from a film standpoint. We're going to dive into the film of the new Buffalo Bills additions to really put their play and their skill sets into focus. Eric, it's a very exciting time for us here.
Yeah, lots of news breaking. I mean, Kyle Allen, the guy that you referenced, the quarterback, Josh Allen's buddy, works with Jordan Palmer with Josh as well. He just signed with the Bills. He has 19 career starts and obviously be the backup to Josh Allen, according to Rap Sheet. So that's the news that just broke. Some of the guys in our chat were saying that Jamal Williams, who is a guy that's been on the Bills Mafia radar here the last week or so, he also just signed in New Orleans, I believe.
Jamal Williams?
Yep.
So the official deal is 3 years, and it just got tweeted to me. 3 years. That's it right now from Schefter. So he cashed in a little bit, which in their backfield's kind of in flux based on as they wait to hear what's going on with Alvin Kamara and his whole situation.
Yeah, and so obviously Williams is a guy that was linked to Buffalo mainly for the reason of the type of compliment he would be to James Cook. There's a bunch of running backs out there. The running back market's really slow, so there are still those type of role players out there.
But Eric, Jamal Williams is like the greatest touchdown scoring running back in the history
from 1
of
yard
football,
out,
right?
Yes, from 1 yard out. No, it's again, there's a lot of guys out there in the running back market. So we'll get to some of that later if we have some time, but I want to talk about some of the moves that the Bills made, man. First wave of free agency is over. Legal tampering period was that first couple days or so is over. Today officially open. So what are your overall thoughts so far? I know there weren't a lot of acquisitions, but we weren't expecting a lot, and we weren't expecting like top tier acquisitions, right?
No, we knew the financial situation the Buffalo Bills were in. We also knew, especially on the offensive side of the ball, but even defensively a bit, we knew the scarcity that existed on the market. There wasn't a ton of quality overall, but especially at the positions of need for the Buffalo Bills, which meant the players that were good there were probably going to get overpaid. And even the players that were halfway decent were also going to probably get overpaid. Nonetheless, I still had my heart broken. I really thought Ogbonnia Okoronkwo had a really good shot at coming here. I like the idea of, you bringing up Fowler. And then, I was digging potentially having Levante David. I could convince myself of that. So I set myself up for some heartbreak, which was foolish on my part. But, we talked about it leading it into this week, the past couple episodes here on the film room and also on Twitter, just where the Bills are as a team and financially and what this market looked like, it didn't bode well for a ton of activity from them.
Yeah, it's something we talked about, and you just alluded to it. The free agent class, we weren't all that enamored with it, and especially when you start looking at the tier of players that the Bills would have, an opportunity to get. So a few of those guys, yes, they did sign for modest contracts, but it's almost like the Bills were like, okay, we got to lock up all of our special teamers and our special teams aces, which we'll talk about. But they did add some nice pieces as well. So let's dive into some of these changes, transactions, not just who they brought in as free agents, but some of the moves that they made so that they could add the special teamers and obviously some of the bigger names that we had becoming free agents. So first, linebacker Matt Milano, his 2-year contract extension through 2026. I mean, that one was pretty easy. It was always that the talk among the Cover One team was, hey, if we're going to pay Edmonds, we can stagger the contract to basically have Edmonds' money kind of kick in when Milano end of his contract in a couple of years. Well, that kind of went out the door once Milano signed this extension, keeping him a Buffalo Bill to 2026. And I think we're all pretty happy when it comes to that. Obviously, a playmaker and has been a consistent playmaker for many years. The other move that they made was running back Nyheim Hines reworked his deal, which saved them $1.3 million. Punter Sam Martin signed a 3-year deal worth up to $7.5 million. And then there were some specifics to that where it looks bad, sticker shock wise, but there's some specifics to that. Tyler Matakevich, 2-year deal that voids to a 1-year deal. So the Bills love their special teams guys, and they treat it like it's a phase of the game, and it is. To almost to a fault sometimes. I do think they lean on that, and guys that are just special teams guys. And what are your thoughts quickly on that? The special teams aces, instead of having guys who are, backups, kind of fill those roles. They almost like to have full-time special teams guys.
I like it to a degree. My biggest thing will be depending on like how many aces are you trying to have on your team, but I like to have like at least 2 or 3. I think, again, that phase of the game is important. That can win you or lose you important games and even championships at times. I think you're afforded less room there if your team doesn't have good depth or top tier talent. So I think that's where you can kind of get in trouble a little bit, but overall I'm a fan of it. I believe in special teams. I think it's a valuable part. And, even just a guy like look what Matthew Slater has meant to the New England Patriots for all those years. Like when you can get those core guys and granted keep it to around 2 or 3, the Bills have leaned over that a bit at times, but I think it's got value to it.
Right. And so another move they made was bringing back Cam Lewis on a 1-year deal. And then the big one to kind of free up a good chunk of money was having quarterback Josh Allen and linebacker edge player Von Miller have their contracts restructured, which freed up around $32 million, which allowed them in many ways to make some of these moves that we've heard the last few days, right, Ant?
Yeah, these were moves, really, even the Matt Milano move, the Josh Allen move, the Von Miller move. There were a handful of those restructures that made sense. You're only restructuring players who are going to see the lifespan of that contract, because you're converting base salary into a prorated bonus, which means you're just knocking down the base salary, giving them their money up front, and then taking that and spreading it over the remaining years of that contract, which means you basically can't cut those players. And the Bills aren't cutting Matt Milano or Josh Allen or Von Miller anytime soon. It's why Deion Dawkins was potentially in this category, Tre'Davious White potentially in this category, players who are going to see the lifespan of that contract throughout. And these guys were, and it saved a significant chunk of money. We were just kind of waiting for this news to happen here on the brand. It's something that we had been anticipating. We talked about it on the salary cap extravaganza, so no real surprise for us, but definitely a significant move that helped them make some of the future moves that we saw in the days after.
Right. And then, excuse me, you can see linebacker Tyrell Dodson was also brought back on a 1-year deal, which, I mean, I know a lot of Bills fans are kind of worried about that, right?
Which, I mean, as soon as you say, yeah, that's a move that, he's been a good depth guy. I think, he came under fire a little bit for some of his play last year in the Detroit game when Edmonds was out. And I know he's an interesting Twitter character. He seems like kind of the guy who seeks out his own name at times and what he looks for, but he's been quality depth. He's been a good special teamer as well. Again, you're not breaking the bank. You're still kind of continuing to, fill your roster out. The only negative I think with it was just funny that all of these moves happened. I think fans were waiting for like a big move, and it was just like, nope, here's Sam Martin. Nope, here's Tyler Matakevich. Nope, here's Tyrell Dodson. And it just kind of made people feel more anticipation for a potential move and for actual like signings. No disrespect to those players coming back, but actual kind of signings coming to fruition.
Right. And so moving on, Dane Jackson, he got the 2nd round tender. I think that was a little surprising. And I'm not sure they needed to, unless I think it was Steve brought it up in our chat that maybe a team was thinking about signing him. And so they're like, we'll just throw a 2nd round tender on him.
Yeah. I mean, he's good. He's good depth. Like I know he's another one who people got on last year, but he had solid numbers in terms of pass breakups. He's smart. He fits the scheme. He's a heady guy. He's someone that the coaching staff trusts. And it's good to have a guy who's seen number 2, snaps, even if he is your number 3 corner or potentially number 4, depending on what happens with Christian Benford on the outside. Again, a little high, but somebody who the team likes, and I guess wasn't really too surprising that they potentially brought him back.
Right. And so Stephon Diggs also restructured his deal, which freed up $5.4 million. And then we get to some of the big acquisitions the last couple of days, starting with the Bills signing wide receiver Deonte Harty to a 2-year deal. It's up to 9.5 million, but there's some interesting escalators built into that one. And then some of the big news that dropped today was the Bills bringing back Jordan Poyer on a 2-year deal. The terms of that deal, as far as financially, it's still being determined right now. I know Jordan is on a plane as we speak, headed to Buffalo to hash out the final details of that deal. And so that info should be coming out either later tonight or tomorrow morning. But I want to get your thoughts on Poyer. We're going to show Harty's film here in a little bit. So I see a lot of you guys in the chat wanting us to tell you who they picked up today in as far as receiver goes. And we're going to have plenty of clips. We have 23 clips between McGovern and Harty. So, but I want to get your thoughts on Mr. Jordan Poyer, because obviously an emotional leader, important cornerstone for many years, you know, put his career really on the line last year for the Bills, and just always put the team first. And it just, I'm so happy. Obviously, you know, he's a friend of ours, but I'm just happy that they are able to bring him back, and they need him. They're going to need him on the back end. You know, Micah Hyde, we're unsure how he's going to come back, and probably have to ease into, or not necessarily ease in rep wise, but ease in getting back into the game mentally. Who knows about Hamlin? But you're missing Tremaine Edmonds up the middle. Who's going to play inside at middle linebacker? We don't know yet. So to have the eyes and ears of this defense the last few years on the back end, Jordan Poyer back in the fold, I'm really excited about that move. And it's honestly so surprising. As someone that talks to him quite frequently, I was completely surprised once the Bills reached out and started talking numbers.
Yeah, I honestly believe that he was gone. Just the, you know, the way you saw other people getting extended and you saw him not, and then he has the injury and he's fighting through it. And you could have just and you wouldn't have felt, you know, any type of way if he felt kind of like hard done out by anything and wanted to go seek somewhere else and, you know, potentially chase the bag that he was going to get on the open market. He deserved it. You know, he came to Buffalo from Cleveland as really an afterthought, a guy that not a lot of teams were talking about. Even when he signed with the Bills, people weren't like, oh my God, this is our safety of the future. This is fantastic. And he turned into an all-pro player here. So he had every right to go and test the market and see what was up. And I'm extremely excited to have him back. The spine of the defense is so important, right? How you play in that interior, starting from your defensive line up to the linebackers and then with the safeties. And then you add on top of it how important those safeties are to this defense in terms of what they do. And then you add in on top of it, Eric, like you mentioned, Tremaine Edmonds leaves. So you are missing a key cog in the schematic identity of this Buffalo Bills defense, in addition to Tremaine Edmonds also being a good player in this defense. And if you were to also lose Jordan Poyer, you're losing 2 leaders off the field. You're losing 2 leaders on the field. You're losing 2 guys who were core structural and foundational pieces to the success and identity of this defense. You get Poyer back. Now, again, hopefully Hyde is good to go and ready to start this season. And you've got these 2 tremendous safeties who I think also feed off of one another. Hyde is better when Poyer is out there, and Poyer is better when Hyde is out there. They're both good individually and in a vacuum, but they feed off of one another and make each other better. Now you've got this tremendous safety tandem coming back, and I think that helps mitigate whatever happens at linebacker a little bit. And again, makes a big difference for this team. You know, Jordan Poyer is one of the leaders. We talked about it. He's one of the leaders and forefront guys when it comes to the culture and identity of what this team is. So it was very important to get him back.
Yeah, and the final acquisition that I failed to mention was signing of guard Connor McGovern. And that's where we're going to head to in a couple minutes as far as film. We're going to start with him. But just real quick, man, I know you dove into some of his film the last couple of days. Let me ask you, did you like his film more at left guard or right guard?
You know, I think maybe I keep hearing from different people. There's like, oh, there's no difference. And some people are like, oh, I think it's such a difference at right guard. He's such a different player. Maybe a slight uptick at right guard from a comfortable standpoint, but I'm fine. I liked his tape at left guard. That's where I started. And, you know, I was watching him at left guard battle, you know, Charles Omenihu and Javon Hargrave rep after rep. And he's doing that at left guard, and he's succeeding, and he's battling and succeeding against these top tier defensive lines and top tier groups. So I think he's fine. And for me, it's going to come down to whatever Ryan Bates is more comfortable at. If he wants to go back to left guard, cool, put McGovern at right. If Bates felt he started to get some rhythm last year at right guard and he wants to stay there, cool. But I'm fine either way. I liked him at left. I liked him at right. I'm just happy to have some more stability. How do you feel about him?
Yeah, I think he's definitely going to be playing left guard, and I think Bates is going to stay at right guard. And so when I watch,
someone right now is going to be like, "What? He has to be a right guard."
No, he's a left guard, and we'll get into that real quick here in a second. But I think you want to keep Ryan Bates on the right side. He's working with, we assume, Mitch Morse and Spencer Brown, and maybe they bring in someone to compete with Brown, whether that's in free agency or the draft. That'd be great. That'd be great, because then he would be working with Darnell Wright. But I think they want to build some kind of consistency there, not just for the offensive line, but for Ryan Bates himself too, because he's a pretty versatile guy, and yes, he can play multiple positions, basically any of the positions on the offensive line. But they wanted him to settle in, because you got to remember he did get a contract last year too, so they want to. He's a piece of the future. Now, I'm not saying they won't bring in someone to compete with him, but I think they're going to keep him a right guard, and they're going to put McGovern at left. And when I watched McGovern at left or right, it just, there wasn't much of a difference.
Right. I felt like it was minimal. And I saw some people being like, "Oh, it's a huge difference." And I was like, what am I not seeing? Like, and especially with his left hand stab and punch that he likes to go to, I feel like that lends itself better to the left side. Which is something that's nice as you pull up some stats for him. Yeah, I'm glad you see it that way, because I was definitely like, am I going crazy? Like, I'm not seeing it.
No, as I said in this tweet, I personally don't see a material difference whether he's at right guard or left guard. If McGovern is more comfortable at right guard and Bates is more comfortable at left guard, run with it. But that is the case. I do remember hearing that Bates did say he feels more comfortable at left, but I'm telling you right now, Bates will be at right, McGovern will be at left. And here are some of the stats from PFF that I brought up. When McGovern played left guard last year, he allowed 2 sacks, 7 QB hits, 14 hurries. He had a 1.9% beat percentage, which that was 10 beats. And so basically that beat percentage is, hey, the offensive lineman lost the rep, the guy beat him, but there wasn't a pressure that was registered on the quarterback. So kind of gives you an idea. Like, it's almost like it's like PFF's turnover worthy plays, but for a lineman, right? And so he also registered a 97.6 pass blocking efficiency, so at left guard. So now in 2020, when he played most of his reps at right guard, he surrendered 3 sacks, 12 QB hits, 11 hurries, surrendered a 4.9% beat percentage with 18 beats, and then an overall pass blocking efficiency of 97.4. So you can see it's pretty freaking close in pass blocking efficiency. He gave up a few more beats, but the ball was out or the quarterback took off. There was really no registered pressure there. So I honestly don't think there was much of a difference as far as right guard versus left guard. I honestly, and I don't mean this disrespectfully, but it seems like it would be one of those narratives that people that you're a fan of the Cowboys and you're scrutinizing every little thing like we do as Bills Mafia. I think that's one of those narratives that comes out where it's a minor thing, but it became a bigger story. I just didn't see the film or numbers to match that McGovern was actually better or drastically better, materially better at right guard.
Yeah, I'm in a similar boat. Like, for me, and you said it in the tweet, like, it all comes down to who's more comfortable. If McGovern came in and really, if one of them felt a certain type of way, Bates or McGovern, and was like, I really want to be at the left or I really want to be at the right, and it came down to functionality for them, then okay, like, cool. Whoever wants to be left, be left. Whoever wants to be right, be right. I also do think there's something to the idea of a guy who's been kind of like a utility player on the offensive line throughout his career in Ryan Bates. I think it would be nice to have him working for the second consecutive year at one position instead of having him bounce to the other side again, like kind of flip-flopping back and forth. Like, you want him to be able to settle in, exactly like you said, be able to build some reps there and some consistency. And McGovern just came off of a good year at left guard fully for the Dallas Cowboys. So I think it makes sense to keep that going. But if they fail any type of way, I'm on board with them potentially switching. But I was excited after watching the Connor McGovern tape, and he's got some strengths and weaknesses, and we're going to highlight those now.
Yeah, so some of the things I saw, and you can add yours right after I'm done. So I really liked the competition he played against, not in just his division, the NFC East, but outside the division. A lot of the film you're going to see tonight, you're going to see reps versus Javon Hargrave, who just got that monster contract in San Francisco. You're going to see reps against Vita Vea, where he's anchoring down versus Vita Vea. You're going to see him do the same thing against Armstead of the Niners. I like him more in pass protection, the run blocking, and we're going to show both sides, good and bad. And I like him because of his smooth angle sets, his weight distribution. Like I always call it pick up, put down, pick up, put down. His feet are just so level and smooth. I always say, like, when guys are this balanced and they have this good of weight distribution, they could balance a cup of water on their helmet. It's so smooth, and he's so smooth in his kick slide. When he does punch and use his hands, he can do it independently. And unlike last year, when you saw Saffold punch out with two hands, he would overextend himself, put his weight over his toes, and the guy would just throw him by and get quick pressure on Josh Allen, which is why one of the reasons the Bills were second in quick pressure, which is pressure in 2.5 seconds or less. But he's very calculated with it. He's very particular when he does punch, and he's very balanced when he does punch as well. So his strongest trait, though, has got to be his anchor and anchor recovery. It's something I talked about for several minutes in the video I did on him. Does a great job of just sitting down, sitting on the inside of the inner portion of his feet and anchoring down versus some very, very strong power rushers. The thing with him is, and I think this is what Kromer is going to work on a lot of, is his hands, right? What to do with his hands, because there are times where he's bear hugging. He's almost bear hugging. And I will say, some offensive line coaches teach that sort of technique. And so I think, who's the offensive line coach for the Cowboys? Is it Philbin?
I think it's Philbin. Yeah.
Philbin used to teach this one of his coaches used to teach that type of technique in Green Bay when he was a head coach. So I think it is Joe Philbin. You're spot on. Some of that is technique wise and what they're asking of him, but sometimes you mentioned it too, I think, on Twitter, where his hands are a little wide. Again, part of that's, I think, what they're asking of him, but sometimes he does miss his points and he's not able to slide up from the bicep up onto the pads. And so you'll see that a little bit from time to time, and you'll see it tonight in the film room. Quick negatives: defenders get under him. For me, it's only, I'd say I see it the most in the run game. Guys get under him. Feet get narrow at times, which also plays into his pads elevating and guys getting under him. Gets pushed around a little bit. He's not a Saffold where he's a mauler. He's more of an athletic guy. So he's quick with his feet, but he will get blown back by power in the run game. And it stays a little heavy on his combo blocks, which doesn't allow him to get to the second level. That's another thing that kind of popped up with me. And then, as I said, the hit points. So when he's trying to latch on in the run game, there are times where he's not able to grip. And again, it leads to some issues. Guys getting into his chest, guys getting under his pads.
Yeah, I echo a lot of those sentiments, kind of work backwards and starting with him in the run game. I describe him more as like more of a shepherd or an escorter than he is like, thank you. Then he is more like a people mover and a force. He's going to take you where you're going, just exactly like a shepherd with sheep. Like, come on, here we go now. That's his game. He is more athletic than he is like a people mover or a power guy. As I mentioned earlier, I really like how he just battles every rep, like whether he's competing against an opponent that you would put like in his tier, or he's competing against top-notch guys like Javon Hargrave. He never looks outmatched. He never looks like a vulnerability or a deficiency. And that's huge for me, because I think the Bills offensive line has been this roller coaster of ups and downs, and I want to get the hell off that roller coaster. Like, I'm tired of the dips and tired of the downs. And I think he's a positive move in that direction. I like his anchor ability, which you touched on. And what I love about it even more is you'll see him do it like he'll lose. It'll look like he'll lose a rep initially because someone will get under him and drive him back. And then he's able to reset and refit those hands and get underneath and anchor, and everything just stops and calms. And you're like,
yeah. And that's important. His ability to anchor recovery. You're going to hear me say anchor and anchor recovery several times tonight. It's important because Kromer has asked these guys to do a lot of vertical sets. So instead of setting 45 degrees, you see him to stay level with the center and tackle. You're going to see him kind of more of like drop vertically. And so at a certain point, that pass rusher is going to hit you. and you got to be able to absorb that blow. And so that is very important, which is why you're going to hear us talk about it tonight.
Yeah, excellent point. I like how he works to maintain the integrity of the depth of the pocket. You'll see him be able to kind of force guys to the outside, and those A gaps are usually clear, like in between, you're from the right foot or the left foot of the right guard to the right foot of the left guard. Like, he keeps that area clean. Like, I can't tell you how many times I watched Dak Prescott just step up in the pocket and either run or have a nice clear lane because he shepherded that guy outside or forced him out. I like his functional athleticism. I like how he's able to move. And I mentioned as well, I like that. I like his hands. We talked about, they can get outside the frame a little bit and be wonky at times, but they're very active. Like, he is constantly like wax on, wax off with his hands. Very active, which we know Aaron Cromer likes. He likes guys who use their hands. It'll stick with me for forever. But he uses this left hand, especially in pass protection, this left hand like punch or stab, and he'll locate it well. And he uses it a lot, almost to the point where it's very predictable. But then it's like he knows it's predictable, so he'll feign it. He'll go and he'll use it, and he'll get you to reach, and then he'll pop you with the right, or he knows you're going to chop it down, and then he quickly refits and gets back and gains control inside your shoulder pads and in that collar area. So, you really hit everything for, pros and cons. He can be a bit high at times, more so in the run than pass protection. Guys will get under him from time to time, but, again, he's got that ability from his athleticism, his hands, his flexibility, and his anchor ability. I like that he knows, it feels like he knows how he's going to be attacked, and he's able to counter the counters that defensive linemen are doing against him. And again, it's happening against a variety of guys, speed rushers, kind of run stuffing defensive tackles, pass rushing defensive tackles, top tier guys, mid tier and lower tier guys. He never looks outmatched. He battles every rep. He's athletic and technical. There's a lot to like. So I was more pleased the more I watched him.
Yeah, and Why Towns King is asking, first of all, we appreciate the donation there in the super chat. He says, so we're still going to struggle in short yards. Listen, I get it. Give it time. These type of backs that play that role, they're not expensive. They're everywhere. The running back market just starting to take off right now. So, and a guy we broke down last week, Foreman, did he sign yet? I don't think he signed. No. Yeah. So there's plenty of opportunities and options out there still, whether it's free agency or the draft. And so I get everyone's the narrative I'm seeing on social media is that, we can't just have Josh Allen do everything. Believe it or not, Josh Allen inside the low red zone didn't carry the ball all that many times last year, especially if you're talking 2 yards or in. So it's something that I broke down on Twitter. So give it time, Why Towns King. There's plenty of time left to find the role player. They don't have to go spend a lot of money on that role. They can get that guy. Hey, they sat down and had dinner with not just Bijan Robinson, but who's the other running back at Texas?
Oh, Johnson.
John Johnson, yes.
Yeah, who's also like pretty sweet and gets forgotten about because
pretty sweet. Yes, very sweet.
Yeah,
he's smooth. I like him.
He was someone we saw at the Senior Bowl. He got banged up on day 1 or day 2 and had to leave a bit earlier, which I was disappointed with. Roschon Johnson, but he's a fun dude. Like they had a good backfield. Man, I don't even want to get into it. I would be completely fine with Bijan in round 1. Like, it's not my top choice, but dude is elite. Yeah. So okay, like that's where I'm at.
I mean, real quick, end of the first round. I understand people don't want first round running backs, but end of the first round,
it's all the second.
A majority of those guys have second round grades.
Correct.
I've heard this year, again, I can't break down and grade all of these guys, but I've heard that the first round grades are a little lower than normal. So normally you may have 17 to 23. Maybe there's a few less than that this year, which means end of the first round, a lot of those guys that are going at the end of the first round are going to have second round grades.
Absolutely.
So keep that in mind. Keep that in mind when we get to the draft as well. So with that
buy
said,
your Bijan jerseys now.
Buy your Bijan. We're setting you up so you're not disappointed. All right. All right. Let's get into some film. I'm going to switch this screen right here. Let's go full screen here so we can watch some offensive linemen here, some hog mollies. So
the sexiest guys.
Yes. Let's start off with some run blocking here. So combination blocks by Connor McGovern. So inside, watch him rip through that near shoulder and then ricochet to the second level. Pick off that linebacker. You see a cutback by Elliott, who just hit the market today. He's a guy that I'm sure a lot of Bills fans are probably like, should we pick him up? Because he's actually one of the top guys in short yardage situations. But this is a really nice rep from him. Again, working that near shoulder, putting him over to the rookie. That guy takes him down, gets to the second level, and then he's able to clear the way for Ezekiel Elliott.
You see these kind of blocks from him a lot. Again, it's not him chucking some guy out of the way, but he just climbs athletically. He gets to his spot, and then he just a little nudge and a little shepherd, like, here you go, get out of the way, widen the hole, set things up for Ezekiel Elliott. Again, it's functional, it's effective, and that's what you see a lot with him. You just see these plays that are like, oh, that's a good play. Oh, that's a good play. And you just see it repeatedly.
Yeah, and I was actually surprised at how much I liked him as a puller. Obviously he had a 9.74 RAS.
Yeah, super high.
So he is athletic, but it's weird. He's one of those guys that when you watch him in a phone booth, you're like, he doesn't even look that athletic.
Exactly.
And then you see plays like this. You see him pull. Look how far of a pull this is, and he gets into that linebacker that's boxing the play in. He gets into his body and drives him. Like, he's just a guy in a phone booth. You're like, he's not impressive athletically. But when he gets out into space, when he's able to pull, he's very springy. You see him spring out there, and he can reach the edge there, springing Elliott there for a nice run.
He's almost got like a run waddle when he runs, so it doesn't look like he's just this athletic marvel, but he just gets moving, and he's got agility, he's got some speed, he's got some short area quickness. I like the finish on this one, just the ability to, again, for a guy who isn't a people mover and who isn't this like physical, forceful kind of guy, to watch him get into a dude and just drive him down to the turf. It's a nice compliment and piece to know that is in there, in addition to the athleticism and the technicality, as he just hugs the line there, gets that shoulder and drives his man out, and just adds a little meanness to it at the end there.
Yeah, here's another one, another pull from left guard. He's not the only one pulling here. It's a wide run, gap run. Boom, you see him pick off. Is that White there, number 45? Yep, he picks up Devin White. Again, getting out into space and targeting and processing who's flowing to the ball. It gets a nice piece of him. I just like him as a puller. I was surprised. Again, I assumed with the Cowboys, there's going to be a lot of zone runs. I like that. But the thing I didn't like about him on these gap runs is when they asked him to be the down block. So you're going to see him down block 56 here, but watch how he loses positional leverage. So it looks good right here. It looks just fine. But then watch him get thrown right there. So, and you can see his angle. You would think, he's got a good angle on him. He's going to wall him so that the running back could hit the hole right here. But you can see he overplayed it a little too much and gave the short edge right here. That guy's able to basically pull him, throw him off, and go make the tackle. So this is one of the downfalls. I like him as a puller. I don't like him so much as a down blocker at the point of attack in these gap type of runs, which it'll be interesting because last year, the Bills like to run that dart, that tackle wrap, where they didn't have their guards pulling. Well, now they can incorporate the guards pulling more because they have a guy like Connor McGovern. So now those tackles can be the down blocks and get the guards out into space.
Yeah, that's where you kind of tweak things a little bit based on the personnel that you have. And when you see him down block in these gap runs, this is where you really start to see, the lack of power, kind of functional strength, depending on how you want to put it. Because again, he's not a people mover. This is him. What he's trying to do, as you highlighted, like, he's getting position. He's just trying to be a shielder. Like, that's it. He's just trying to shield and seal, and that's it. You're not seeing him drive anyone or really kick anyone out. He's not going to take someone from this gap and chuck them into another one. And, oh man, Devin White got crushed there. He's not going to really chuck anybody like that. That's not his game. That's not what he's aiming to do. He's a shepherd. He's an escorter. He's a shield kind of guy, but that will lead to him sometimes getting out muscled, getting, push pulled like that, or kind of getting pushed off kilter if his positioning and hand technique isn't right.
Yeah. Here's another one. And honestly, starts off really well. Look, you see him reach. That's a tough block. So they're having him reach so they can pull these two guys out. That's a really tough block, but again, the quickness, the athleticism, quick out of his stance. He's able to execute it, but then watch him lose positioning because the power. He lacks that power in his lower body. It's something that when I was scouting him at Penn State, it's something I noticed. So yeah, it looks like he won this, right? And so now the ball's going to get outside of this defensive tackle he's blocking, but then that guy plays over the top. So he doesn't maintain that position, and that guy plays over the top. Now this forces Zeke to cut back up inside. And of course, when you do that, you're getting all of this pursuit down the line of scrimmage. So that makes Zeke cut right back into that instead of, leading up through here as a running back. And and having a really nice run, he's forced to cut it back. And that guy is still able to, do his job, get his helmet in the hole, when really, McGovern had won that early on. He just couldn't maintain that position.
Yeah, and this is one too where you see the hands kind of get outside the body and outside the frame, and then I think that's Roy Robertson Harris for Jacksonville. As he starts to fight through, you see McGovern just his right hand is completely off. He's lost control. That's where you can kind of see between the lack of power and sometimes improper hand placement. That's where you'll see him lose some reps from time to time. Again, it usually shows up in the run more so than it does in the past, but this is one where it looked positive early, but it just gets away from him.
Yeah, your athleticism in close quarters like that can only take you so far. Sometimes in the run game, you just got to have that power, that physical strength, and he doesn't quite have it consistently. It's all about consistency, because does he have the technique? Absolutely. I'm sure there are flashes that Cromer saw in film that he's like, you know what, I see that you have it. Now we just need to refine it and get you to do it more often. And this is another one of those plays where, like, you see he's working that combination block with the center here. Really nice pad level. His pads are low on this one, but he's supposed to overtake that nose tackle. He's got the position right there. You see him flip his hips, but he doesn't get his hands on him. He's getting punched in the face a little bit. That has something to do with it. But watch his pad level here, and he's not able to lock on and latch on to that guy, and that guy just plays over the top of the run, and he makes the tackle on the running back. So again, positional leverage. There are ways to win in the run and pass game. Sometimes guys are like Saffold, they're more maulers. They're physical leverage guys. They use their hands. They use their power from the ground up. Well, with McGovern, he's more of a positional guy. He wants to win with quickness off the snap, which he does here, good pad level, but he's not able to flip his hips, lock on, drop those pads so that the running back can get north and south here, and that guy makes the tackle he's supposed to be blocking.
This was one that legitimately pissed me off when I watched it, because the center feeds him well, and he's low here. He's got across the face of his man. You see the angle. And it sounds so simple to us, but just like, bro, just get your right hand on him, flip those hips, turn, and just seal. And then when he finally does, you see how high he is. Now he lost that initial position and that initial leverage advantage that he had. And now he's the high man and low man wins. And his guy gets across his face and makes the tackle, which again, it's frustrating because he had it initially, but he just misses that little window that he had to really finish that rep and really completely beat his man and set the block up.
Right. So we showed you some positives, negatives in the run game. And we're going to get into some of the pass blocking stuff and some of the stuff that's really fun with him, because again, he is a much more consistent pass blocker than a run blocker. So one of the first things that we're going to note is his ability to stay on level with centers and tackles here. And that's important because when teams want to run stunts, or when you see a guy, spike inside here like 72 does, if McGovern is a little deeper here, there's no way he's going to be able to help out here. But you can see he's almost, watching the tackle, watching the center. Okay, which guy's going to dive inside? Which guy's going to dive inside? Oh, 72 is, I'm going to pick him up, balls out. It's one thing that shows up so often with him, his ability to stay on level with the adjacent offensive linemen of the Cowboys here.
Yeah, excellent point. And, I don't want to add too much to that. I just kind of want to mention and he shows it a little bit here, his ability when he's like that help lineman, his ability to scan and kind of figure out where potential like vulnerability is and seek it out. Like you see him on this one go after 72, you'll see him at times almost kind of peel back and he'll meet an edge defender that's working around the arc of the left tackle. Like he's consistently aware, he's got his head on a swivel. And that type of support is very helpful, depending on how your offensive line rules are set up. When you've got a player that is able to scan and realize what hole he needs to plug, if there's some water leaking through the dam, that's a nice piece.
Yeah, and so I talked about staying on level when teams want to stunt. We're going to see a couple of stunts here. 94-57 running a stunt here. Defensive end spikes inside, and this is where that athleticism really comes into play here. You see him right here. He looks to the left tackle, and he's like, oh, because this is the man side of the protection. It's one-on-one. And normally, if they were closer, if they're on the same level a little better, they would be able to just pass it off. But there, you see that leakage that Anthony talked about. There's a nice gap inside for that DN to spike inside. But you're going to I went forward. Hold on. There we go. You're going to see that guy spike inside, the D tackle kind of loop outside. Well, he realizes, guess what? I can't pass him off. I need to run with him. It's man protection. I'm going to run with him, run him by the spot of the quarterback spot in the pocket. and then Dak can take off. So that's why this athleticism and staying on level with the tackle or centers is so important, because when these, and this is something we always know, and the Bills offensive line, especially in these empty type sets, they struggled at times last year when they had those 5-man protections. So having a guy that's athletic with long arms, 34 and 1/8 inch arms, you're going to see that play a factor on this play.
We've seen the last couple of years, but especially this past year, and not to pick on Saffold, but you've seen deficiency from the offensive line against these just simple 2-man games, just basic twists and stunts. And this is one of the aspects I like about him as well. Like, he has the awareness to pick up these games, but he's also got the athleticism. Like you noted on this one, this is the man side of the protection. He knows right here, like, my man is going out. I have to stay with the man. But what's important is he has the athleticism and the ability to see it through. So not only does he have the mental wherewithal and the football IQ to read what's going on and diagnose it, but he's got the ability to get to his man. And then again, it doesn't have to be where you completely, pancake him and destroy him. Get your hands on him, lean into him a bit, and just escort him right around the edge. And that rush has done nothing. Where it looked threatening at first, now you've got the quarterback running out the front door and there's tons of space. And no disrespect to Dak, but if that's Josh Allen, it's a much more threatening place when he's on the move and in that space.
Oh yeah, no doubt about it. So this one, they kind of flip it. You're going to see this guy spike first, and then the looper is going to come inside right here. And again, athleticism, staying on the same level is important, but also that arm length is really important on this play. Watch him snaps off 94 to his teammate, snaps him off, and then gets his long arms on the looper inside, just rides him wide of that spot again. And look at that passing lane. It's money for Prescott here. A really, really nice work on this stunt here. And this is what I'm excited about with him. Yes. His athleticism, his length, and just how he passes off these type of things. Because you got to think about it. He's going to be next to Deion Dawkins, and the power of Dawkins with the finesse and pass blocking of McGovern. It's exciting. It's exciting to, think about that for next season. Just good stuff from McGovern on this play.
Yeah, the help piece is nice because he feeds 94 like right into Smith. Like, he literally pushes him right into the center of his chest, because 73 for the Cowboys, Smith, he's not picking this up at first. His head is focused on the original man coming outside of him, number 57. So he's not picking up anything until he sees that flash of color. But McGovern pushes 94 completely into his field of vision and right like square into his chest. It makes it easier for Smith to pick him up on the outside. And then again, the athleticism. This is the type of game up front where Roger Saffold would get beat on the inside because he didn't have the foot speed and the lateral agility or the athleticism to move and shuffle and get on his man. And McGovern just gets his hands on him, shepherds him out of the way, and you get a nice opportunity for your quarterback.
Yeah, and so this is him at a right guard versus the Niners a few years ago, and his ability to anchor. So watch this guy get past to him. Watch him pick him up. Again, he's got eyes on Fred Warner. He sees Warner mugging that B gap. That guy gets past him. Then watch him sit. And this is what I mean, sitting on the inner half of your feet. Yeah, like this is important. Cromer always talks about this. Like, are you able to get under the pads of a guy that's rushing you with power? And you can see he is able to just sit down, hop, boom, sit. It's over. It's over for that rusher. You see this routinely on his film, and it's my favorite part of his game.
Yeah, you nailed it. You'll see that. Sometimes he'll get it down in just one hop, but a lot of times it's that hop, and that second hop, his feet go in, he anchors. You see a nice pocket there for Andy Dalton, and then he's got vision. He's not really pressured, and it starts because the depth of the pocket is not threatened. So again, like you see, the defender is under McGovern a little bit and drives him back, but he is able to take those hands, get them into the chest, and then rely on that lower body sink into the ground. And exactly like you said, it's over. He sinks. This is the type of rep that you see consistently, and it happens against the best of the best. It happens against regular tier guys. It's something that he uses that's like a legitimate weapon in his pass blocking arsenal.
Yeah, speaking of a weapon on the defensive side, Hargrave was a monster, which is why he got paid really well. But you can see he's in a wide technique here. It's a 4-eye. So watch the footwork, the kick slide to Hargrave, but more importantly, how he's able to anchor versus that, shorter, stockier, powerful defensive tackle. You look at him just absorb that with his lower body, his hips, and his core. He's able to just absorb that and then just sits. He's right there. Now Dak is able to just stand in the pocket and make this throw up and over to Tony Pollard. Again, the type of players that he played against, not just in that division, but across the board in the NFC, the type of interior rushers is really going to bode well for him coming to the Bills division.
This was the second game I watched. I immediately went to the Niners game from last year and then both of the games against the Eagles because you knew the type of talent that he was going up against. And what I like about this one too, you got the anchor. I like towards the end, just the slight turn to kind of turn Hargrave outside and clear that, give Dak a little more room on the inside, a little more of a passing lane, turn Hargrave to the outside so he can't get his hands up. He can't get his hands in the passing window, maybe bat a ball or get a hand up and knock something down. So not only does he anchor and win the rep, but then he also, again, let me just turn you a little bit. Let me just make things a little bit easier for my quarterback, which is nice in and of itself, but even better, again, like you said, considering who he's going up against, one of the best defensive linemen and interior defensive linemen in the entire NFL.
Here's another one, this time versus Vea. Again, slide. Look at the feet.
Vita Vea is a monster. Like, everyone needs to know that. Like, it's hard to handle him one-on-one just to kind of set the tone. He's a force.
Again, wide alignment. And so Vita Vea is getting speed. That gives him more room to get that speed and that big body going. Look at the kick slide. Very smooth, very efficient. And then right here, watch him just get into him and then just absorb it. I mean, it's amazing. I think about this. Vita Vea, full speed coming at you, and he's able to just sit so that the quarterback can move around the pocket there. But like, this is such a good rep from him. Mm-hmm. It's almost like it doesn't look like much, but he makes it look so easy when he's able to sit versus this big, powerful rusher.
And so on the previous play, you had someone who was shorter and still powerful, but a guy who has a natural, leverage advantage against most offensive linemen in Javon Hargrave. This time, you're just going up against King Kong, who doesn't need the best technique and doesn't really need leverage because he's big and strong and quick, and he can just run through you. And the fact that he's able to anchor against Vita Vea, and again, it's not like, oh, he's, hanging on for dear life. Like, he wins this rep. You see him be able to, he can arch that back. Like, he's got a strong core. He's able to maintain the core strength, the lower back strength, the strength in your quads and your hamstrings and your ass, like what you need to withstand that level of pressure and power coming at you and be able to anchor. Like, that's impressive. It also takes like flexibility in your bones and your joints and your ligaments, which also, if you can show that kind of flexibility, you can also tie that to potentially less injury down the road because he's got that type of muscle flexibility and strength. Again, another rep technically and also physically against a dude who doesn't really get, stopped like that often.
Yeah, here's another one versus the Niners. He's at right guard. This is Eric Armstead in a wide alignment. Really long, powerful guy. And I will say Armstead got him a couple times in this game. There's no doubt about it. But watch how he sits. And you can see the long arms of Armstead. He wins first touch, but then watch him just sit again. Boom, right there. Like, that's amazing. The fact that you can, and he's not the only one. Like, they did a good job for the most part on this side of the line of creating that wall for the quarterback there to get rid of the ball. It's all about timing. And you can see he's able to anchor down right there, and the ball's out and completed. So just, again, his ability to anchor, or if he loses first touch, he's able to recover. Anchor recovery is very big for guys that play for Cromer because of the type of sets that they're going to be using.
It's nice to see guys win in different ways and when different things happen. And I would say more often than not, I think he usually wins first touch, but against a guy with Armstead's length, like, you're not winning first touch. And then not only does Armstead get first touch, look at that extension. Like, Armstead has extension. He's got lean. He's trying to drive. And the fact that McGovern is able to just lock out and stalemate him when Armstead's in good position. Again, this is a good defensive tackle with technique who knows how to play that leverage game, who knows how to use his length and his power to create pressure on the interior. Again, you have another type of skill set, another top tier guy that Connor McGovern is battling and winning reps against. And again, he's not invincible. Like you mentioned, like, Armstead got him a couple of times in that one. Javon Hargrave got him a couple times in that Eagles game. But that's going to happen when you're facing top tier guys. Like, that's why they're top tier guys on the defensive line. Like, they don't get shut out like that. But the fact that you got a guy for about like 7 million and some change average annual value who can battle those top tier dudes and win and hold his own, that's a really quality piece for this offensive line that was looking for more consistency and less variance from game to game, week to week, and play to play.
All right. So moving on, we're going to look at some Deonte Harty film. But before we get to that, I want to talk about his cap hit and some of the things that we liked about him as a receiver. So their first year cap hit is supposedly in that $3.7 million range. 2024 is going to be 5.3. But there's some interesting stats on this guy, because I really think that he has a good chance to overtake Isaiah McKenzie as the second leading wide receiver when teams play man coverage. Listen to some of these stats over the last 3 seasons among all wide receivers with 75 total targets. These are some of his stats. So again, over the last 3 seasons, because again, he was kind of banged up last year with turf toe. He's had some injuries, pretty much almost every other season. But yards per route run over the last 3 years, he's ranked 11th. So he's getting 2.21 yards per route run. Yards after the catch per reception, he's 5th. He's getting 6.57 yards after the catch per reception. Over the last 3 years, that is ranked 5th. Dude, that's ridiculous for a guy of his size and stature, but also adding him to the offense of the Bills, who last offseason, that was the talk of the offseason, right? Yak. This guy averages that much yak per reception over the last 3 years. He's ranked top 10. He's 5th overall.
Yeah, and you see it practically applied when you watch him. Like, he's got a lot of shiftiness. He's got a lot of juice. He's got a lot of jump in his legs, both in terms of long speed and in space, but also in close quarters. Like, he can make a variety of defenders miss. And yeah, that yards per route run is no joke. And even if you look at it just from a siloed aspect from the 2021 season, there were 94 wide receivers with at least 20% of targets in 2021. He was 6th in yards per route run, only behind Cooper Kupp, Deebo Samuel, Devontae Adams, Antonio Brown, and AJ Brown. And if you increase the sample size and look at it in that 3-year span, like you mentioned, Eric, it's not like 2021 was a fluke. It's a legitimate part of his game. Like, how he was used in New Orleans, when he was used, he was almost kind of like that big play guy waiting to happen. He's a guy that's electric. He's got juice. You want to just get the ball in his hands any way that you can, and he can kind of create his own space and create his own offense.
Yeah, and you can see this. Nathan Janke from PFF. So from 2020, 2022, a minimum of 150 routes, most yards per route run out wide. You can see his names on there with Devontae Adams, AJ Brown, Tyreek Hill, and Amon-Ra St. Brown.
The out wide piece is huge, because I feel like people are like, well, he's little. He's got to be slot only.
Yeah. No, that's definitely interesting to see. I couldn't believe that stat, to be honest. That was an interesting one. And there's another one that I found that had to do with man coverage. Let me see if I can bring it up. Here it is. So again, over the last 3 seasons, among all wide receivers with 75 total targets, this is what I'm talking about with man coverage. Stats versus man coverage over the last 3 years. He, in EPA per target, he had 1.18, which is number 1 overall versus man coverage. So again, he's going to beat some man coverage. If teams want to play more man, which I'm expecting this year, he's going to be a man coverage beater. Yards per route run versus man coverage over the last 3 years, 2.47. That's 8th overall. And then yards after catch per reception, again, 8.29 yards over the last 3 years, which was 1st overall. So, last year when it came to man coverage, the guys that led the Bills were Diggs at 34.2%, McKenzie 13.9%, Davis 13.9%, Knox 11.8%, Beasley 6.7%, Singletary 4.8%, Shakir 4.8%, and then Cook 4.3%. So I'm looking at Davis and McKenzie, and I'm like, if this guy's healthy, if Harty is healthy, he's going to eat into some of these percentages when teams want to go man coverage. And we saw last year that obviously Diggs was the man versus man coverage, but they needed someone else that when they took Diggs away and they wanted to play man coverage, so they used that vice bracket with 2 guys over the top of Diggs, they needed someone else to go to. And I think that Harty could absolutely fill that role. But he offers not just the big playability to beat one-on-one and get down the field, as you'll see in film. He can take that 5-yard in route to the house as well, right, Ant?
Yeah, he's got one against the Cowboys from 2021 where he gets a little, 5-yard inbreaker and takes it 65 or 70-something yards for a touchdown and is, splitting Parsons and Trayvon Diggs and just taking it to the house. And that's an important part, right? Like, you and I have talked about it. One, just getting more work from guys in the slot and injecting more speed and vertical stretch, but also having a man beater
Mhm.
in this offense. Like Stephon Diggs is that. Gabe Davis, who you like as a wide receiver too, and I do as well. Although everybody's probably going to grab their torches and pitchforks because we just said that. Like he's not that man beater type of wide receiver. Like we know what he is, and it's not that. Injecting someone again with this kind of juice and honestly, I wasn't expecting the sharpness and the suddenness in
Yeah.
his routes that he has, like, which I guess if you watch him like juke people, like you can understand how he has that sharpness and suddenness, but the fact that he's able to apply it in technical ways is really encouraging, and it speaks to his ability. It can work against zone, but if you're going to man him up one on one, he can route you up real quick with his feet and his fluidity and his explosiveness, and that's huge for this offense because we've seen them struggle at times, and we anticipate, like you said, more man coverage coming forward.
Yeah, so some of the traits you're going to see on film here is obviously his quickness, as Anna was talking about, his quickness in his releases, but also in his
Oh yeah.
breaks. And his quickness is almost overwhelming to defenders where they're like, oh, I can't get beat over the top, or I can't get beat inside. I need to play inside leverage. And then they're overwhelmed, and he's able
Yeah.
to get the leverage that he wants. He's, a lot of people thought, oh, he's just going to replace McKenzie as that gadget guy. No, he's
Mhm.
way more than that. He's way more than that, but he can do the screens, the jet action stuff, no doubt about it, because he diagnoses daylight so well, almost running back like in many ways.
Yes,
So
good call. He treats
yeah,
everything almost like he's on like a punt return or a kick return. Like
yes,
he's setting up his blocks, looking for daylight and leveraging space while he has the ball in his hands.
yeah, and he does a great job, whether it's man or zone, working back to the ball.
Good call.
You'll see a defender start to jump the play, and he'll jump right in front of them to snag the ball. Reliable hands, 5.2% drop rate over the course of his career, and he does a really good job on film. I think maybe we have one clip, but whether it's high or low, he adjusts to it really
Mhm.
well, picks it up off his shoelaces a lot of times. But
Yeah.
the thing I was surprised with him was his contact balance, man. Again,
Mm.
running back like, right? He does such a great job of when guys, because he's so small, so guys come in high and they try to wrap him up from the shoulder pads up, and he's able to just slip them, stay on his feet, and get more yards after the catch.
Yeah, he run his speed combined with his height and his low center of gravity, but also like he's small in height, but he's not small in like stature. Like he's not a thin framed guy. And when you
Mhm.
take how tall he is, and the fact that he's not tall and he's short, he's got kind of stockiness to him for a speedy guy. And he does not go down easy. He fights for contact. He'll run through arm tackles. He'll pinball off defenders and fight for extra yards. And not only like he doesn't go through contact with the mindset of let me get a couple extra yards. Like he goes into contact trying to bust it off for like another 25, 30 yards and take it to the house. Like every time he gets the ball, he's looking to make a house call and a big play. And you see it reflected in his play, like no matter what he's doing. And I really like what you highlighted, like the idea of, I think people see, oh, small gadget guy, cool. Like Cut McKenzie, it is what it is. But I genuinely think like you, like he's got more potential than that. He's not just a return guy and a gadget guy. He has the potential if he stays healthy, given his skill set and the fit in this offense, he could really make some noise.
Yeah, and that's the thing, health. That's the big thing with him.
Yeah.
He's just got to stay healthy. They're paying him to stay healthy and make plays. So here, I wanted to start this clip off with this film room session on Harty with a play that shows his acceleration. So here he is coming across the formation, and they're going to run a little, basically a little flat route to him, a little screen, and watch him just, casually catch the ball, diagnose the blocks, lets his blocks get out there, but then watch how he goes from 0 to 60 here. Like, boom, puts his foot in the ground, north and south, first down. Like, that's an easy button. That's an easy button play. And the Giants are lucky that he didn't break this here, because
Yeah.
if Kamara picks up this block a little better, or even I'll even put some on Harty. If he reads this better, this could be a touchdown. But either way, man, the quickness and acceleration, this is going to be a nice dimension added to the Bills offense.
He gets the ball in his hands on this one and just takes that quick little hop step to get the defender commit towards the outside so he can set that block up, that second level defender. I think of Bradbury there, and exactly you highlighted in there, like he gets him to commit upfield and sets him up. And basically, so he uses that block that's happening on the
1 for 2, yeah.
outside. Exactly. He allows his one blocker to take up two guys because he set that up. That's legitimate. That's not accidental. He does that with regularity and then puts his foot in the dirt. And like you said, like just steps on the gas pedal and floors it. You don't have to have the perfect screen game or the perfect block set up because he knows how to elevate it and set it up himself. And then he's got the juice to take advantage of it. If you can get it to him in these situations, it can legitimately be like an easy 5 to 10 yards or 10 yards in a cloud of dust if it works out appropriately.
And here's another like screen type play, almost the other side, exact same play. But watch the elusiveness. You see this guy, he's right here. So he dips and then cuts back on his side. Like his elusiveness is very running back like here. Watch that move right there. But then this defender does get a piece of him. Look, he gets a shot to make the tackle on him, but he rips through that, bounces off of it for several more yards, gets closer to the first down. Like this is nasty. Again, McKenzie, when the Bills would run screens to him or even Cole Beasley, like a lot of fans are saying, oh, well, we don't run screens. Well, they actually have run a lot of wide receiver screens. They don't run a lot of running back screens. They have run, but if you look over the last 3 or 4 years, they've run near the top of the league when it comes to wide receiver screens. They don't run a lot of running back screens, but you put the ball in your hands of this wide receiver, he's able to make plays like a running back screen by making people miss, and then that contact balance, Ant.
That's the huge piece, right? Like he's got the speed and the quickness and the shake and the elusiveness, but but a lot of guys have that. Like McKenzie has some of that. He doesn't have the contact balance that Harty has, and not a lot of small guys like have that. It takes toughness, it takes agility, it takes strength, it takes a variety of pieces to be able to function. And again, this isn't him shaking off a tackle from, a corner or some like smaller safety. Like he's shaking off a tackle from, a box defender, from a legitimate defensive lineman who is getting on the angle on him, and he sets it up, gets outside that inside man just by putting his foot in the dirt. And then I like this too, like, because sometimes these gadget guys will get too horizontal and they'll go too east and west, but he's good at getting north and south. Just puts his head down, doesn't, oh, you know what, I'll just take the hit and gain a couple yards. He's trying to maximize it, and he runs through a tackle and gets close to the first down marker. This is an aspect of the Bills game that they haven't had, and they're speedier, smaller Smurf kind of guys. They haven't had this type of contact balance within them. And so again, it's another dynamic that would be new and welcome to this Bills offense.
Yeah. And this is one of my favorite reps right here. So bottom of the screen, watch this versus man coverage. So a lot of people are like, okay, a guy that's small, how is he versus press? How does he separate or get off the line of scrimmage? I mean, you're not going to have an issue with him getting off the line of scrimmage right here. And then just watch. Again, I said that he makes guys almost panic. You're going to see this guy think that he's going to go deep. Well, he's going to go deep until he isn't, and he snaps that route off. Look at that separation. I mean, that's what, 3 or 4 yards of separation.
Yeah.
Pat on third down, third and short, third and 3 yards or so, snaps that route off. Like these are the routes that are always open for the Bills. These curls or deep comebacks. This is third down. This is a really nice route from him, and separation is the name of the game, and he's got it. He's a separator, and I can't wait to see Josh Allen throw it to a guy like him.
I think people often conflate speed with separation and think that's the only way that you can separate. And ironically, we're talking about a guy with speed, but you can separate on your release. You can separate at multiple points in the route stem. You can separate at the catch point. You can separate at the break. He does a really good job of snapping off these deep comebacks or these hooks or curls, depending on, how you want to phrase it, type of offensive system that you're used to. He sells the vertical. And again, you will see this in his games. He sells the vertical with his pace and his body language, but then he's able to just snap it off and come back to the ball. And when he snaps it off, look at his feet. It's just a real quick pop, 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 and he's out. And he's out of the break. The defender is still like catching himself and trying to get his feet back under him. And Harty is already out of his break, like before you even know it. He's literally one of those dudes like blink and you missed him. And he does this with regularity. And then he comes back to the football, catches it, gets upfield again. He can separate. And it's not just because, well, of course, he's a really fast guy. He knows how to run his routes and how to pace them and when and where to snap it off. And then he's got the footwork and the hip fluidity and flexibility to be able to pop out of those breaks quickly and separate at the top of the route. It's real pretty.
Yeah, I know my buddy Yards Per Pass on Twitter, he likened him to Darren Sproles on how he runs. And I said, I like that comp. You see his feet. It's like quick pitter patter. He's so fast.
He's got like a
road runner. He's just gone. And I thought he looked like just visually, he looks like a Brandon Cooks light. He's not as big as Brandon Cooks or as fast as him, but I felt and saw, like when I watched his movements and his breaks like that one and how he separates versus man coverage, I felt like he was a Brandon Cooks light. So here's a zone coverage play where they're running him on an out route from the slot. And we talked about contact balance. Look at him sit in that hole of that zone defense. Nice throw up and over that defender underneath. But then right here, he's surrounded. He has no business getting any more yards right here. But again, that guy comes in high. That guy tries to lighten him up, and he's able to maintain his balance. That is ridiculous. And this is against the Bucs. There's some really good defenders on that defense. You see him break that tackle with his contact balance, speed up the sideline, make another guy miss for an explosive play.
Again, to be able to fight through that initial tackle right after the catch, that takes core strength. It takes flexibility. It takes a little bit of ankle flexion, like to be able to pull that off. Like your momentum is carrying you another way. And then all of a sudden that momentum stops and he's almost able to use this arm tackle as like a slingshot and propel himself forward up the sideline. He survives basically 2 hits. And then this is what I really like. Like as soon as he gets free, immediately he kicks it into overdrive and gets upfield. But then again, all right, cool. Maybe I'll get out of bounds and just keep going. We see that all the time. Nope. Puts his foot in the dirt, beats a good safety in Antoine Winfield Jr. and keeps getting upfield. The Bucs defense just does a good job of pursuing. Shout out to Levante David. Oh, what could have been. And it's all these little dynamics and all these little wrinkles that he offers. And this is something that, for people who want to make that comp, like Isaiah McKenzie was not doing this. Isaiah McKenzie wasn't pinballing off of defenders and almost like operating with he almost runs with like speed to power, like a bull rusher would, like off the edge. He's able to convert that speed into legitimate momentum and he uses it and wields it in physical ways. And it's impressive.
Right. And a guy with his size, you can't just, again, put him on the line of scrimmage all the time, expose him to press. You got to do some things formationally to give him those free releases. And you saw this with the Bills years ago when they had Cole Beasley, is they run these stack sets to keep Beasley clean, but to run these like option routes. So you're going to see him in the slot and he's on the line of scrimmage, but watch him delay the release, let that coverage kind of unfold, right? And then he's reading the zone coverage and it's just, hey, I'm going to sit right there. So this is something that the Bucs did. And I'm sure the Bills are going to do it. We saw it last year as well. So a little delayed release, stack set, hit that curl. But this is the other thing, the yak portion of this. Okay, normally Beasley, the last couple of years of his career, he was probably just getting down at this point. But watch how he's able to turn on the jets and eliminate angles and get up the field for several more yards. Like it's incredible. It's incredible he's able to turn that corner and get several yards after that catch.
He turns the corner and gets upfield like a good edge rusher would when they're bending around that arc. Like he's able to it's tight and he just leans and dips the shoulder and he gets upfield. And again, this is what you'll see with regularity. Like it's in his tape. Like he'll use these delayed releases, kind of hop step a little bit, bang, bang, sit down, find his way to leverage space and sit. And then as soon as he gets the ball, he goes into attack mode. Like he doesn't just sit and let the ball come to him and then turn. He starts moving once he sees this ball comes. And then you highlighted the little runway that he's got there. He sees it, turns on the jets and gets upfield. And it may not seem like, oh, what a big difference, but he catches the ball at about the 41 and he takes it to the 50. Like that's another 9 yards. That's like one less first down. Exactly. That's another first down. Yeah. That's one less that you have to earn as you're trying to matriculate the ball down the field. It's a nice little potential easy button because those are the routes that you'll see the Buffalo Bills run, but because they don't have yards after catch guys, they make it and then it turns maybe into a 1 or 2 or 3 yard gain after. Not another 9, not another first down.
Yeah, here's another one, stack set, but he's on the line of scrimmage here in the slot. Again, waits it out. That guy, again, has to be patient, but then watch him snap this route off. Like he can run those option routes that Beasley used to, but again, he's got a different element because of his speed and quickness, and then some yak after that as well. He's not just going to go down. He's going to get some yards after the catch. Just really, really nice formation usage to get him free on this delayed release. And then again, just how quick he is out of that break. That guy he's got nothing. He's got nothing here. There's that separation again. Telling you, he's going to be an issue when teams want to play man coverage, and that's what you want. Whether he's inside or outside, he's going to
Mhm.
be an issue versus man coverage next year.
Especially when you put him in the slot in a scenario like this, like where you have that two-way go and it's just one-on-one and he's, pitter-pattering those feet and he's pumping his arms, you don't know, like, because you're on that island and he could go left or right, you don't know what he's gonna do, and it's kind of pick your poison in the world is his oyster, and when he gets that space in one-on-one, there's so much room for him to operate, and he's so quick and he's so fast, and he's got that suddenness and decisiveness in his game that it's an easy win, and you highlighted it there, like, legitimately for the defender, and the body language from Harty, he could be going inside. He could
Yeah.
be going outside. Like, you genuinely don't know. Maybe they're running a little bit of mesh and he's gonna run a drag across the middle, or maybe he's gonna pop it on a speed out. Like, you don't know. So you have to play him, straight up and squared and see where he's gonna go. But then because he has that quickness and that suddenness, you're at a disadvantage. And he separates so quickly. Like,
Steps on the dude's toes. That's
exactly.
crazy.
And you see the defender try and reach, but he's so off balance. Like, he's reaching as he's falling backwards. He gets put out of position. And that's because Harty is forcing him into being put out of position. And then he said it. What does he do? As soon as he catches the ball, he's not taking it and getting out of bounds. He catches it. He's immediately looking to get upfield. He transitions from receiver to ball carrier, and he's trying to maximize everything he can out of it.
Yeah, and I love this because that defender at the top of the route break, he actually is playing decent outside leverage. He wants to take away the outside route here, but because of the quickness of Harty, he's still able to win it at the top of that route. Just, again, nearly gets the first down here, sets up for a short yardage play. So he can win at all three levels. And a lot of the stuff you saw up to this point were in that short area, that intermediate area. So here he is to the bottom of the screen. He can win deep, obviously, as well. So again, similar stack set. This time he's outside as the outside wide receiver, but I love his active hands. And look at this. I mean, there's two guys right here. So they're disguising it really well, making it look like, hey, we got two guys over the top, but watch the hand usage. Sets him up outside, up the numbers. But as that guy commits to open up and kick step out to the boundary, he gets back inside with active hands, throws that guy by, and then stacks him as he's getting vertical, and he's able to reel the pass in down the field. Nice catch at the end. Gets up, gets a few more yards after the catch again. Great awareness. I just love this stuff. Again, at the line of scrimmage, that guy tries disrupting him and keeping leverage. He uses active hands. For a little guy, he's got very active hands, and that's one thing I love about wide receivers.
The corner here is in a soft shoe press, so he's mirroring off the line of scrimmage. He's not going for the jam, and Harty uses that. Like, he sells him with that outside release, gets the corner to open up to the boundary, and then immediately plants that left foot in the ground, kicks it back inside, works through the contact, and then because this is where you see the speed, he's able to separate and stack just because he has that speed. And then he makes a really nice over-the-shoulder catch downfield. And then again, the wherewithal, he knows he wasn't touched. He knows he's not down. So he's got the athleticism to catch this ball, roll through it, and use his momentum, and then has the awareness to just get back up and tie it together with that athleticism. And he fights forward for like another 5 yards, again, trying to maximize everything. This one is quickness, it's some strength, it's some hand technique, it's some awareness. He displays a lot of these abilities in a variety of ways. And again, that's what makes him different than what the Bills have had in his type of size or stature at the wide receiver position previously.
Similar formation here, outside, off the line of scrimmage, sets up that release. You see him follow that tight end up the field, and then he's just over the middle. But the reason I picked this play is, yeah, he's open. There's no problem. There's a guy over the top. He's not able to get to that inside route. But watch this throw by the quarterback, and this is in traffic. Look at him adjust, avoid that big hit, and then get a couple yards afterwards. The type I said, reliable hands. Being able to trust a smaller receiver over the middle is really important for Josh Allen, because it felt at times last year that Josh avoided the middle of the field. Taysom Hill doesn't on this play. It's a bad, inaccurate throw. It's a bad placement, but look at him adjust to it, spin, and then get upfield for the first down. Trust over the middle of the field for a guy with his stature and ability to separate. If he can win quickly and get over the middle of the field like this, this bodes well for Josh Allen. This is the type of guy they need over the middle, especially if you're talking like smaller stature, slot type guys.
He had several reps in this game where, whether on slants or some in breakers, where he was open, but Taysom Hill Taysom Hill kind of really waits for you to clear and be in that window wide open before he throws it. He's not a big anticipatory thrower. And you see it on this one, like he's waiting and doesn't really even see that second level defender coming from the other side. And the defender gets his body right onto the hands and almost onto the ball here on Harty. But like you said, he's got the good hands and also the athleticism for him to catch this and turn
Yeah.
in midair and then the balance to withstand the hit. And he just lands, kind of tries to, reset himself, but then gets tackled right there and can't get through it. That's a nice tough catch over the middle. And like you said, like that's an aspect. Oh, when did you show that graphic? Like 2 or 3 weeks ago, where we showed like the difference in Josh Allen work in the middle of the field this past year. Like there just wasn't that type of consistency for him. And I'm right with you. I think a lot of it was trust based on what he was seeing. Like Harty could be, a positive step in terms of attacking that area of the field.
And that's the thing. Like, I don't want to get down on guys, but McKenzie, a lot of people talk about Gabriel Davis's drops, but McKenzie was up there.
Yep.
And,
it started right in game 1, like against the Rams. Allen had that interception because McKenzie let it bounce right off his hands.
Yep. And so here's a play the Bills run a lot of, just like a flood sail concept. We're going to have him at the top of the screen, just running that V route, getting deep, almost like stuff that John Brown used to run. You see him and they let him loose. I mean, they let him loose. They're not over the top of him, but I just really like his tracking on this play as he's down the field, catching the ball for the touchdown. So he's got the wheels to go deep, whether they use him as a clearing route or actually just throw it to him. This is typically one of those plays like, hey, he's an alert. If you get this single high coverage, then you throw it to him. But more times than not, you're not throwing it to him. But he's able to get down the field, work all 3 levels. As I said, he can work all 3 levels. He can get to that 3rd level quickly, which is important when you're talking diagnosing these type of like alert type routes. He's able to get deep and track this ball very, very nicely for the touchdown.
Yeah, his speed and quickness is real. And I love that you mentioned the clear out piece. It's one of the things in my notes. Like he's got that vertical threat ability. So you can use him as just pure clear out guy if you want to just make space and be able to attack the intermediate and create some chunk plays that way. Or if you get the right look and you have a big, strong armed quarterback who's good at throwing the ball downfield and can drop it in the breadbasket for a guy who can run underneath and catch it, he becomes a weapon for you. And so on this one, it's not just a clear out piece. Like you get the coverage that you want. Jameis puts a good ball on him. He's got that ability to separate once he gets going. And you just see that speed. Like it's real. I saw a couple comments earlier asking about like, what's his true 40 and this and that. Like forget what his 40 is. When you watch the tape, you see him consistently separate and blow by guys. Like that's all you need to know. His game speed is real and it factors in a variety of ways, short, intermediate, and vertical in the deep areas. Again, just another one, just running completely by guys. Sometimes it's with nuance. Sometimes it's just with his speed and his ability. And this one, he just coasted to the end zone on the post.
Yeah, this was more of a blown coverage. There's no way this guy's going to get to the deep middle here. But I put this play in there. You can see him open it up. You see him open it up, and then he's bending it to the middle, almost right into the thick of this guy in pursuit. But another good job of just tracking it and then, again, avoiding that guy for the touchdown. Just a player you got to see him open it up a little because a lot of people are asking about his 40 and whatnot, but I wanted to throw this play in there.
Yeah, you really get to see him. It's kind of like you got like that power car, but you want to you're not driving in the city. You want to get it on the open road and the highway and be able to open it up and see what it can do. And when you see him run these vertical routes and get some of that space, it's impressive. Or what's nice too, for people, you can look at his punt return highlights or kick return highlights where he's just functioning in space and you see the speed and the suddenness and he's just juking guys out of their shoes and getting upfield and his ability to go horizontal or his ability to go vertical. Like you really see his athleticism and burst and suddenness and sharpness in his movements when he can really get out into space. And again, like I think this was one that people saw the money and were like, oh my God, like, well, first they saw the name and were like, who is this? And then it's like, oh, it used to be Deonte Harris. And then people saw the money and we're down on it a bit. But then you see how incentive laden the contract is. And it's like, oh, okay, that's a fair contract. And then you start to watch him and he's so much more than I think people initially thought that he would be.
Yeah. And Chris is asking, just me, or does this signing have a Smoke Brown feeling? I could see why you would think that, but John Brown, he, again, stature wise actually was taller and bigger than Deonte, but Deonte is just, again, he's got that running back element where he's got the contact balance. Yes, he's going to take a lot of those wide receiver screens that John Brown did versus those cover zero looks, but he's not just going to house it with speed where he got good blocking and hit that alley. He's going to break some tackles. He's going to make some guys miss. And that's scary to think about because, again, the Bills face a lot of cover zeros, and to have that check back into this offense would be nice to have. But I understand why he thinks that, he's got a little smoke feeling to him. I could see that, but I think he's a little more. I honestly, if he stays healthy, this guy's going to eat in this offense with Josh Allen. Because as you said, there are times where Josh does want to see the guy open, right? He wants to see the guy open. That's why we always say, like, Josh has to have those separators. And John Brown was one of those guys, but I feel like Deonte is going to be a different element to this offense. He's going to be almost like a combination of John Brown and Cole Beasley because he can beat you over the top with that speed, kind of similar stature of those two guys, but do some of that stuff in that short area with separation that Cole Beasley did. But after he catches it, he's going to get more yardage. There's no doubt about it. Again, he's been tops since he's been in the league. It's just staying healthy. That's the biggest knock on him. Is staying healthy.
Yeah. And, I know, and it's fair that if people want to tie it to his, stature, and it's like, well, he can't stay healthy because he is a smaller type of guy, but hopefully, knock on wood, we didn't really see it last year with the Bills, but this is a team that has largely been able to stay healthy. We know how top tier their facilities are and their medical team and how they treat their players and what they do for injury prevention and then injury management if anything happens, whether it's, soft tissue or muscular or even bone and things. So I think it's a good situation for him to go to from an injury standpoint, potentially. And again, like you said, if he can stay healthy, what you already have in this Bills offense with Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis and Dawson Knox and what you have with Josh Allen, this type of dynamic in terms of the skill set, we really haven't seen from the Buffalo Bills before, or for Josh Allen and in this type of offense. And I think we're going to continue to get these comps of like, oh, like John Brown, or, oh, Isaiah McKenzie, or, oh, but he's a different type of guy. Like, don't let the stature just make you think they're the same player. It's similar with the draft conversation. I think people see Kalijah Cansey from Pitt and they're like, oh, he's at Oliver. It's like, no, like, watch his pass rush moves and his plan. He's a different type of guy. So don't just box somebody in based on the stature and frame. While understandable, he's a different type of player, and one that the Buffalo Bills offense has not had, and one that is a needed skill set and dynamic and element for this offense, given where we've seen them struggle these past couple of years.
Yeah, Traz asks, how much time do you think he will see out of the backfield? It's something that they dabbled with under Dable a couple of years ago with Beasley. Last year, Harty, again, shortened year, turf toe. He was in the backfield 1 rep. The year before that, 2021, in the backfield 9 different times. And then 2020, 4 different times. So there will be times, but it's mainly teams do that. And I know he can run the ball as well, but teams mainly do that when they want to just identify the coverage. Like, hey, I'm putting that wide receiver in the backfield. Who's over the top of him? Where are they aligned? Is it a safety? Is it a corner? Is it a linebacker? It's really just to identify coverage more times than not. And then that's why you would see like Beasley, when they would have him in the backfield like that, right before the play would be snapped, they would motion him out of the backfield. And so they knew what coverage was coming. So with that said, man, let's wrap this up with one last topic. So where do the Bills go from here? Obviously, they brought back Poyer. They weren't able to bring back Edmonds. There's a huge hole at the linebacker position up the middle. What are some ideas that you have, maybe some targets that you have, whether it's free agency or draft? Where's your head on the Mike linebacker position right now for the Bills defense?
I'm almost at the point where I don't want to mention anyone anymore because everyone I mentioned keeps going somewhere else, which again is understandable. Like, it's free agency. It comes to the territory. I'll mention Bobby Wagner, not necessarily because I love it, but I know that's a name that's floating around a lot. And I respect that he was second team All-Pro last year. And I respect his tenacity and his processing and how smart and instinctive he still is. He's not the coverage guy that I think a lot of people are thinking that he was with the Seattle Seahawks. I was watching some of his tape last night. Like, when he's covering, he's clamping down on like 5-yard hitches and maybe some drag routes that come from the other side, but he's not going to be carrying tight ends and slot receivers vertically. Like, he's not Seattle Bobby Wagner, and he shouldn't be expected to be. He's 30. He's
Yeah.
going to be 33 years old. And he's got a lot of miles on those tires. But I wouldn't be opposed to Wagner coming in just because of his experience and what he could do against the run. I don't necessarily think it's ideal from a pass coverage standpoint.
Negative.
Yeah, he's again, I don't want to like knock him because again, he was second team all pro last year, but you watch the tape and you see him in space and coverage, and you're just like, oh, like in this defense, that would not be ideal.
His range is limited.
Yes.
When you saw him in coverage last year, they played so much like combo coverage on the back end of that secondary. They didn't need him to get depth like the Bills asked of Tremaine Edmonds. So you saw a lot of the times he was the low rat defender on the running back. If the running back leaked out, he'd have to get him. So he wasn't asked to get deep into the coverages down the field. A lot of check down, wrap up tackles with him. A lot of stuff in the hook to curl area. They just didn't ask a lot of him when it came to pass coverage. And so I think that if you're trying to project him into the Bills defense, I don't think he has it when we talk about range. He's got it from the shoulders up. There's no doubt about it.
Yes.
He's still very productive. But in this defense, I would find it very difficult for him to play 20 yards down the field like we used to see with Tremaine Edmonds and those Tampa 2 looks. Like this defense is still going to play a lot of those too high looks. And their Mike linebacker has to be able to get down the field. So Wagner is one of those guys. I know there's people were asking about Zach Cunningham.
No.
Dylan Cole, I think still out there, but he's very much like Wagner, super, super good athlete, dealt with injuries over the last few years, but doesn't quite have the range down the field, but super athletic from, tackle to tackle, can make a lot of plays in the box and around the box. But I think they're going to go into this, into the draft with this. Again, maybe they sign a lower tier guy. I don't think they're going to sign a upper tier guy. And money, they might not even have the money to do so, really. And we're still waiting on the numbers on Poyer, so the numbers are still up in the air. So I think they are going to take probably a linebacker early. I think, maybe as early as, day 2. I'd be surprised if it's day 1, but I think second round is where they're going to start eyeing some targets, and they may even have to move up to get their guy. I don't know who they, rank wise. I have Campbell and Simpson, very similar close grades in that early second round, mid second round. And so I don't know if they can just wait with their second round pick to go get guys like that.
That's what the troubling part for the draft pieces for me is. I don't think there's any linebacker in this draft class that is worth a first round pick. Like the best linebackers for me are going to have that second round grade. But then I worry, Trenton Simpson and Campbell are my top. And I don't think they're both, I would bet both of them aren't there by the time the Bills pick comes around naturally in the second round, given, Campbell's impressive showing at the combine and what he does against the run on tape. And then Trenton Simpson, who Simpson is one as well. And I know you feel similarly. I don't even love him in the box. Like he can get misled with his eyes at times and he bites on eye candy, but his athleticism and his tenacity and his burst, I like him in space. Like I want him as an apex defender or like the big nickel. And so I don't even know, okay, if you take Trenton Simpson, are you putting Milano at Mike, and are you using, how are you using Simpson? And I know he had a quote at the combine or at his pro day talking about he wants to be deployed everywhere. Like he was at Clemson. Like you'll see him at Clemson as a Mike, as a Will, as a Sam. He's blitzing up the gut. He's blitzing off the edge. Like he'll match somebody on the outside.
He's a spy defender. Like he does it all. He was a post safety at times. Like he literally, when we talk about blending the nickel position and the safety position, he could be that player. And I'm glad you said big nickel, because it's just hard not to see Shaq Thompson with him, because Shaq Thompson had a similar type, played some safety, then came down, played some outside linebacker, obviously played for McDermott. He's very similar in that regard. So I wouldn't be surprised if the Bills are high on Simpson. And maybe it's not just as a Mike. Again, I don't know, but he's gonna go quite high. There's an opportunity or chance that he does, slip into the end of the first round.
He could.
Shaq Thompson did, right? Didn't he go 30th overall or something like that?
He did go. He was actually, he might have even gone higher, because he
27 or 30. I want to say is towards the end of the first round. So he's a guy that could, elevate his game, because he's explosive. He's a great athlete, as he said at his pro day. There are scouts and personnel that think he could lose a couple pounds and play safety. So
Yeah.
he's got a lot of versatility to his game.
I
Drew
mean, he ran
Sanders,
he ran
another
he ran a
guy.
4.39 at, like, 239 pounds,
Yeah.
like, so imagine if he drops a couple pounds, like,
Yeah.
what's he running? Like,
Andy's asking about Drew Sanders. I like him. He's a project. I like his ability to play, up and down the line of scrimmage as an edge rusher, but also off the ball. He only had 1 year as an off the ball linebacker, and he was productive. But I thought his best reps were at edge
and
and
see,
coming
that's the piece
forward.
for me, like, where you're really gonna get
Yeah,
value out of him is not in the Bills' defense, like, they like Arkansas would, yeah, drop him down on the edge on 3rd down, and he can get some pass rush pop, but that you're not gonna get that in the Bills' defense,
he
you need more off-ball coverage based.
exactly. He's going to get a lot of looks as that next Micah Parsons, the guy that, they can
Mm.
use on the edge, but that use him off the ball. I don't think McDermott wants to play that. I think he
No,
wants
yes, yeah,
he
I
wants
agree.
his true Mike. He wants his true Mike. Justin Phillips says, if the Bills sign 6'8" Donald Parham, he and 5'6" Deonte Harty's average height is 6'1".
Damn, that's funny. Man, he makes Hardy seem tall. That Parham is
Yeah.
a monster,
Yeah.
of a tight end.
Yeah, for sure. So with that said, man, any other topics you want to cover before we get out of here? This is a good film room, man. We got through a lot of clips, 23 or 24 clips on
Yeah.
the 2 big acquisitions so far.
We were efficient tonight, and I'm proud of us for that, given the excitement and the moves. And I think what's nice with the moves, and we've talked about it a bunch, like you use free agency to supplement the needs and the potential holes. So that way you don't go into the NFL draft with like, oh, well, we're completely deficient here. We have to draft this position. I think the Bills have set themselves up where they can, draft best player available at several spots. Like, granted, there's still some needs on this roster that are larger than others and require some more urgency, but they made some moves now where they've kind of stemmed the tide a little bit. And I think it's still going to be exciting given what we may see going forward in free agency. But again, going into the draft, because they've got that variability where you don't know. Oh, appreciate you, DF. Thank you very much. DF
Thank
says,
you.
hit the like button. Thanks, Eric and Anthony. We really appreciate you being here. I appreciate you being with me on Disguise coverage last night as well. And yes, if you have not hit the like button, please do. It goes a long way towards helping us track and trend on the show and the network. But I'm really just excited. Like I like what they've added in Harty. I like what they added in McGovern. Like, those were 2 areas that needed some attention. And now we go forward and okay, like if things I think some more moves will happen in free agency, probably smaller, maybe potentially bigger, but going into the draft now, it's like, okay, is it going to be more offensive line focus? Are we just taking best player available? Like, if Nolan Smith falls in the 1st round, are you taking Nolan Smith? Like, is it, all jokes aside, do you take Bijan Robinson? Does Jackson Smith and Jigba fall and you take him?
Yeah.
Like, there's all these possibilities and potential. Like, do you still draft a safety in round 3 or 4? Where do you take a linebacker? Are they addressing linebacker in free agency? There's a lot to look for, and I'm excited for the possibilities. How about you?
Yeah, it's you don't want to go, as someone said in the chat, free agency is for need, draft is for the talent. Free agency, you plug those holes. That's what Bean has done for so many years
Mhm.
now. And there are obviously there were some huge holes, especially when with Poyer possibly hitting the market. Glad to have him back, man. Poe's
Absolutely.
back. I love it. I love it. They're gonna need him on the back end there. And he earned it, man. He freaking earned it. With how he put the team first last year, could have easily just said, you know what? No, I'm taking the rest of the year off. I hurt my elbow. I'm going to get the surgery, worry about free agency and go there. But no, he wanted to play, played for his team, played for his teammates. He's earned it. So I'm glad to have him back. But yeah, it's going to be exciting, man, because I do think they'll still add some guys, but they're going to be lower tier guys, in free agency. But it makes the draft that much more fun because then everything's open, right? Everything's open.
Yes.
Everything's on the table. And that's what makes the draft so much fun. That's what makes the NFL so much fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's an interesting spot. We'll see how the board falls for the Bills going forward. We'll see what they do in free agency. Again, there's a lot of, needs at certain positions, but the grouping isn't great. And you'll see, how the board falls. But the Bills have set themselves up to potentially make some moves going forward. They could still address the wide receiver position and go for some more high-end talent in the draft. They could still address interior offensive line, tackle. They could address safety in the later rounds. Again, we've talked about linebacker, maybe edge, maybe defensive tackle. It'll be exciting as we go forward, and we hope that you folks will join us here on that road through this offseason, through free agency, and through and to and after the NFL draft. with us here in the Cover One Film Room live every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern. We want to thank everybody who joined us live here on this episode. Thank you very much to Y-Town's King for the super chat. We greatly appreciate it. Everybody who rode with us live, the questions for us, the questions for each other, the back and forth, the engagement. We say it all the time, like we'd be nothing without all of your support and in the variety of forms that it comes in. So thank you very much to everybody who joined us live. If you have not already, as I mentioned a couple minutes ago, please, and thank you. Drop a like on this video. Our producer AJ just put it up there. 260 you in here. Make sure to hit that like button. It goes a long way. It does. It legitimately affects the algorithm and helps us to get pushed forward, and our ability to, again, get in front of more eyes and ears so we can continue to push this thing as far as it can possibly go. If you didn't join us live here on this episode and you are watching later, listening later, whatever have you, thank you very much for your post live listen, view, download. If you are listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or Google, wherever have you, please rate and review and subscribe to the channel and to the show. Do the same thing on YouTube. Drop a like. Tell your family and friends and loved ones about how awesome this show is. We appreciate you folks more than you will know ever. Oh, man, I feel like we've done so much to get here, but it's really just started. Like today, the NFL season officially started. We're just moving forward. There's a lot to cover, and we will have you covered every single Wednesday here in the film room at 7 p.m. Eastern. So for myself, Anthony Prohaska, for Mr. Eric Turner, for AJ, our man behind the scenes that you folks have not seen, but he's there like a terrifying ghost lurking in the background. This has been another episode of the Cover One Film Room. We hope you and your family and friends and loved ones are all doing well. Take care of one another. Be kind to one another. Godspeed. We'll see you next week. And as always, appreciate you, RJ. And as always, go Bills.